I'm pleased to be joined by Ryan Lavner, Golf Channel senior writer. Ryan is one of the better reporters when it comes to golf, and we are lucky to have him on our team. He really digs in deep to his story. He's been working on the story over the last few weeks on why Scottie Scheffler hasn't won in a year. He did win yesterday. Where can we read that story now, Ryan?
In my email outbox, potentially the recycling bin. Yeah, that one unfortunately never saw the light of day.
What's the motivation of that story, at least?
So when I talked to Scottie for about 20 minutes at Riviera last month, it was very interesting because he wanted to reflect on what, to this point, had been 51 consecutive winless weeks officially on the PGA Tour. And when talking to Scottie, it was good to get a reminder of how he has always kind of figured out his golf. You look back in junior golf, he had a crazy growth spurt. He gained about 12 inches in a 14-month span. He still became the country's top-ranked junior player. In college, he had a lot of back issues, spurred in part by that big growth spurt, and yet he still became one of the best college players, represented the U.S. in the Walker Cup team. Once he became a pro and landed on the PGA Tour, he had a little trouble closing out golf tournaments. Now he's become the most prolific winner on the PGA Tour over the past 2+ seasons. And so that's what actually made his putting so confounding, is that here's a player for the first time could not immediately figure out something. And so you have a player who has nearly attained perfection, coupled with a modern media landscape in which he's being asked every tournament, every round, not about his extraordinary ability and his ball striking stats, which put him on par with Tiger's prime, but rather his chief weakness, being asked over and over again and again about something that he does not do particularly well. And just on a human level, that can certainly grate on a player. And so Scottie told me he's had a lot of time of reflection over the past couple of months. It's really tested his patience, tested his perspective, tested his attitude, as he talked about right there at Bay Hill. But he told me something very interesting, that late last year, he ended up rewatching some of Tiger Woods' old clips. And he was struck by the fact that commentators were absolutely ripping Tiger every time he seemed to miss a 15-footer. That a player of Tiger's immense ability, otherworldly talent, could do something like miss a 15-footer. Scottie Scheffler is not in that territory yet, but he can at least relate to some of his play.
Yeah, and I'm guilty of it. I'm sure you are too, asking Scottie Scheffler about his putting over the last year or two, but he has a wonderful attitude, maybe the best leader on the PGA Tour in strokes gained attitude. And I can tell you this, Rich, after the performance that his fellow players saw on the greens this past week, man, he may have a bit of an intimidation factor, because if he putts as well as he did this past week, he could win 6 or 7 times possibly on the PGA Tour this season.
Yeah, there is that distinct possibility. Lav and Todd, thank you. And over the last 50 years of the Florida swing, only 3 players have won through the swing in 3 consecutive seasons. It's elite company, Jack, Tiger, and Scottie. Jack 4 straight. You might remember the old Doral Eastern Open, the Players, when it was at Inverrary in South Florida. He then won the Jackie Gleason, how sweet it is, in 1977. And the Players right across the street from TPC Sawgrass at Sawgrass Country Club. Tiger with 2 flush 4As, 4 in a row, then 5 consecutive, most at Bay Hill. Scottie's now done it 3 straight years. Scottie Scheffler, Brandel, not the kind of guy who's trying to drive clicks on social media where, authenticity, I think, is often undervalued, sort of has like an old school balance. Stone cold competitor, but a gentleman. What's your sense of Scheffler?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I think his humility is first and foremost when you're around him. Humility and superstardom, and I do think that he is on the verge of superstardom. Humility and superstardom don't normally come in the same package. Now, I'm not knocking arrogance amongst superstars. I certainly understand that, but I think all of us can appreciate it when we see otherworldly talent combined with humility. You think of Larry Fitzgerald, you think of Tim Duncan, you think of Rafa Nadal, Roger Federer. Scottie Scheffler, here he is, he's poised to beat the absolute brains out of his competition, but all of his competition can say is that he's just too darn nice to be envious of his talent or to hold it against him.